The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this quick technical webinar about how to hook up your Journyx reporting with your Power BI. My name is Meredith Zachritz, and I'm the Director of Products here at Journyx. And this is just going to be a quick session today to show you how you can tie into your Journyx data and get it to automatically refresh in your Power BI client. So we'll just go ahead and look at a use case here. You don't need to worry about taking any notes about how to do this. We will be providing a step-by-step guide. It'll be kind of a one-page quick start on how to do this yourself with your own site. And of course, we'll also be sending out recordings of this webinar if you ever need to go back and take a look. But in the meantime, I'm just going to show you. It's not too terribly difficult, and it's pretty powerful if you are using Power BI to do some of your reporting already through your Microsoft subscriptions and other activities. So I'm going to start with something that some of you may have used and may be familiar with, which is something called Journyx Report Link, because we're going to use that same data and those data feeds when we get to Power BI. So Journyx Report Link is an add-on for the Excel client, the Microsoft Excel client, that allows you to log in with your own credentials with access to only the data that you would normally see in Journyx, and then set up pivot tables and spreadsheets and other types of reports. And then after you've logged in the first time, after that, you just simply click refresh and update your data. And so you essentially build these report templates that you can update at any time with the click of a button. And it's really handy for building reports if you like Excel and pivot tables and that sort of thing. And like I said, it's directly connected to your Journyx database. So, there's nothing manual that needs to be done to update your data. So if you have access to the reporting menu, Report Link Exchange is there. And one of the things that's included with Report Link Exchange is the user manual, which outlines something that you can use for your Power BI connections. And that is the types of feeds that are available and what data is included in those feeds. So the time feed is kind of our big base feed, and it has hundreds of fields. It's a big feed, but it explains exactly what the feed is called and then what's included in it. And you can roll down this table and see all of the different types of feeds that we have available so that you can pull a data set that will allow you to report on what it is that you're trying to see. So these are the Report Link feeds. Now in Report Link itself, it's a little more automated. If you've ever seen it, there's a Journyx ribbon option that it goes into Excel when you install it, and you have your login information, so your username that will determine what data you can pull and see, following all the the security and role ability rules that you have set up in Journyx, and then you simply put in your site location along with some extra parts to the URL here that are automatically loaded in there. And that part, that delimited.pyc, not something that you really need to know, but just so you know that is essentially what tells it that you're pulling this feed data from your site, and that is how you access it. So the Report Link client, the add-on, is a little more automated. You at this point, you can click refresh or new or whatever it is that you want to do, and it's going to give you the list of feeds. And it's going to ask you, for example, what you want for dates. But you can do roughly the same thing as a data source in Power BI. It's just slightly more manual, but once you have the URL information plugged in, it's pretty easy from there to simply refresh your reports and templates with the data. So let's take a look at Power BI here. I'll give it just a moment to launch. This is the desktop client. As you can see, these data sources only are available in the desktop client. We are looking into options for kind of automating this access to fresh data in the online version as well. But right now, what we're showing you today is something that you would do in the client. And then, of course, as the manager, let's say, of your report templates, you could always refresh those reports and publish them to those who use Power BI online. But right now, this particular solution we're showing today is specific to the desktop client. So whether we are just starting and we get this pop-up, or you're already here and you go to get data up in the ribbon, regardless of which way you go, we're going to link up with the data source so that we can build our reports. In this case, we're going to go to Other, and we're going to do a web data source. So again, we have a document that will walk you through this step by step. So we go to our web data source. Sometimes it's a little slow. There we go. And we want to put in more information than just the basic URL. So we're going to build out our feed name and our dates in the actual URL. So we're going to go to Advanced. And just like we saw our login on the report link ribbon, we're going to type in our site here. And this is a demo site, so you could even try this out on one of our demo sites. And then I mentioned that there are these special things that go on the end that tell your site that you're pulling a data feed. And so we do all of that. Now, with this particular interface, what I'm going to do is add the pieces to this URL that will define dates and feed types, so the data that you want to pull. And again, step by step, we'll have documentation to show you how to do this. So I'm going to enter a start date. And we always recommend when you're doing this sort of thing to enter a start date, because if you've been on Journyx for years and you don't enter a start and an end date, it's going to pull everything, and that might take a lot of time. So we're going to go ahead and pull data for all of this year. So I'm going to do 2018. 101, so the beginning of this year. And then I need to add my feed. Now I could in this next part, so I click Add Part to get another field here. I could at this point go ahead and do an end date too, but in this case, what I really would like it to do is refresh with new data anytime that there's new data available. So I'm going to leave that end date off, and therefore it's open, and then it'll always be current. So I've got a start date so that it doesn't pull an absurd amount of data, but I'm going to put no end date here. And then I'm going to define if I can type here, the feed I want. So this is our report type here. And I'm going to go ahead and use that most popular of our feeds, our time feed. There are a lot of other feeds. Some of them don't have as many fields in them. You probably don't need all of the fields that come in the time feed. But if you need access to some very specific fields for filtering or any other organization, calculations, that sort of thing, you can probably access them in the time feed. And then, of course, that report link user manual will tell you more about what's in each feed. So this is how I enter my dates and my report types. In Excel, like I said, there were prompts that just let you pick or add those in. In this case, we have to put them in our URL. But once I've done that, then I can say, okay. And what it's going to do now, it might bring you here, just so you know, this defaults to the anonymous thing sometimes if this is the first time you've ever done this. And so we're going to go to Basic so that we can enter our login information. But in this part, at some point, somewhere, it'll tell you that passwords are not encrypted. So what we don't want anybody doing here, and this is something that we'll block you from doing, is to ever enter their passwords here. So we're going to go ahead and enter our account that we're using for reporting. In this case, it's an admin account, but it could be a manager account or any other type of account you have. But what I can do in lieu of a password is use something called an API key. And that way my password is nowhere, where somebody could potentially, insecure, or in my Power BI stored somewhere where somebody, malicious actor could get to it. And so what I would do then is go to my Journyx site, Let me make sure, let me get to the window here. Hang on just a moment. Well, doesn't want to bring up Chrome for me. Hang on. Oh, there we go. I've been there. All right, so I'm going to go to my Journyx site, and I'm going to go to my preferences and entry screens. And if you are on version 11.2, there is a new feature where you can generate API keys. So that's for version 11.2. Version 11.5 coming out very soon will have the same feature. And so I can simply generate an API key. I can show it if I need to, or I can simply hit copy. And so I'm going to use that in lieu of a password right here. And so I'll simply paste that in, and then I'll connect. And so I'm not storing my credentials for Journyx here in any way that would cause problems for security reasons. And there I have my data. So it was just that simple to hook up to my data source, and I don't need to ever do it again. So I'll load my data. It'll take just a moment. And then I can start building reports. So hours, obvious thing, we like to report on hours. And I don't really want a bar chart, so I'm going to change that to a pie chart. So now I want to break down my hours into some categories. So let's do, you can see how many fields you have. You have all the custom fields, all the time entry fields. I'm going to start with user department, which is a user custom field. So I can see my hours by department there, but I want to break that down a little further, and I want to see what projects each person worked on in each department. So I can go and find my project name. There, I have a nice view of projects by department and the number of hours that were given over to them. And then I can go and do all the, wonderful things that you guys probably know better than I do for, I can get this to turn on. There we go. In Power BI to customize the reports and do various things with them. But at that point, I have all my data from my site, and I can start slicing and dicing that data pretty easily here in Power BI. And then, of course, anytime that I have new data in the system, I can simply click on refresh, as long as I left that end date, open, or set that end date perhaps sometimes. So you might just set it, for the end of the year, and therefore you would always get any data that was available through the end of the year. I hit refresh, and my reports are updated. And then, of course, I can go ahead and share that to the folks who are using Power BI online. So that's just a quick overview of how you would hook up your data to Power BI and then be able to build reports and templates for others to use. That's really all we have for today. As I mentioned, we're going to have a quick start guide that we can give to anyone who's interested in trying this out. And of course, our services and support people will be available should you need assistance getting this set up. That's really all I have to cover. Are there any questions? You're welcome to type those into the Go To Questions panel now. I'm going to give it just another couple seconds in case you're a slow typer like I am. Okay. Oh, we do have one. So somebody's asking if there are any plans to support version 10. No, not in terms of the API key support. So you would have to store your password in your Power BI. But ReportLink and the ReportLink data feeds are supported in version 10, so that would be really up to you to manage the security of having to store a password in your Power BI client. But API keys are available for 11.2 and up. I can't really say yet in terms of anything that we do for, that we are planning to likely offer a set of templates in the Power BI marketplace. And then I also mentioned Power BI Online, and more than likely version 10 will not support anything that we do there. So the question is, can I connect without an API key? And yes, the answer is yes. You can, in that field that I showed you where I typed in the login and then I put an API key in the password, you can put your password there. We don't recommend it. Let's put it that way, for security reasons. But if you were to run it, for example, if you wanted to run it by your IT department and they said that was okay to store a plain text password in Power BI, that would be up to your IT department. We absolutely cannot recommend that for security reasons. All right, any other questions? And for what it's worth, we will eventually block you. If you've got a very older version of 10, it might allow you to put in that plain text password. We will block you from doing that in the future for your own good security. All right, any other questions? Great. Well, thanks so much for attending. And as I mentioned, we'll follow up with the recording of this webinar. And we'll also follow up with kind of that quick start guide. The quick start guide will probably be out sometime next week or later this week. But we can follow up with that information so that you can try it out for yourself. Thanks again, and have a great day.